of this, they mess it up, but it becomes this amazing, beautiful
Yeah.
out. It's like amazing.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous, and they're just,
Well, and the trades, a lot of the trades are very to me, they're very gestural. It's like they're going in and out, and whether they really come back on the one or not is irrelevant. And it's not just that. I mean, the Sonny Rollins live at the Village Vanguard when he was playing trio, sax bass drums.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I love that the disc one is with Pete LaRocca on drums, and they're doing the trades, and it's like totally like getting pretty wide.
Yeah.
But it's just like they're making statements, and they're talking.
Yeah.
And so then it's just like, how, should I 1 2 3 4 2 2 3, or should you just play? I mean, one of my favorite drummers right now is R.J. Miller.
I don't know him.
Yeah, he if I remember right, I think he lives in Maine or something. But I'm a big fan of the Meldau Trio, and they've been doing this tour recently, and they came through to Austin, and I was maybe on YouTube seeing if I could find somebody sneaking some recordings, just I want to know what they're doing,
Yeah.
I couldn't find anything, so I typed in Brad Meldau Trio 2018, and for whatever reason, a Aaron Parks Trio concert popped up, and it was with Aaron Parks, Ben Street on bass, and R.J. Miller on drums. And R.J. is this very subtle, not afraid to and it's not aggressive or anything. It's just very talkative, very inviting playing, very beautiful drumming, where it's yeah, man, I'm gonna kind of play the hi-hat on 1 and 3 every now and then, or it's I'm gonna do these trades and I'm gonna go over.
Yeah.
Just like how other instrumentalists will do that during a drum trade.
Right.
And it's just, you hear these things and it's just that you could do that, but it's somebody finally does it, and it becomes this really interesting thing, almost like an emotional thing, where I was man, that was so touching.
Yeah.
In drum, maybe it's because I'm a drummer and that it's touching to me to see somebody play like that, But it's you hear that and it's man. Also, the first time I ever heard a really musical drum trade is one of my favorite drummers in the world, Matt Wilson, and Matt's in his band Arts and Crafts, and on the record, The Scenic Route, they play Monk's We See. And he does 2 8-bar trades with the bass player, and the first trade, I got really emotional over, because he basically just kind of played the melody in terms of the contour, and just wasn't afraid to play very, sincere, rhythmic, there's no, you were going to walk away singing that, That was the first, because I never thought, it sounds stupid, but it's I didn't know I could do that.
Yeah.
And it's that's so beautiful. And to think about the drums as a beautiful instrument. I think it's sounds silly.
No, I love. Just imagine them as a beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, they always look. Some of them look beautiful. They're very pretty.
So,
a nice lacquer, or nice sparkle wrap or something. But people don't think about drums that way. I mean, the general public speaking, they think, it's, and so sometimes I'm on gigs and I'm trying to play that way, and I run out of ideas, and then I go to my stupid licks that, whatever, maybe they're cool, maybe they're not, I don't know, but I'm sick of them. And then you hear always somebody in the back going, woo, and everybody's digging it, but I'm not digging it, because I want you to do that when I'm playing mallets, and I'm just playing I'm almost playing I'm playing timpani or something, very
Yeah.
I want you to do that when I play that way, instead of
Yeah.
The older I get, the more I want to solo like that. Obviously, if the music calls for something else, you play something else, but when it's you get to have an open solo and be yourself, and depending on 9 times out of 10 with a lot of bands that I play with in town, I do that, because there's a lot of we play at a lot of bars, and sometimes you got to fight the crowds and things, and so a lot of these bands might really be heavy hitting and just balls to the wall the whole time.
Yeah.
But when I solo, man, it's I try not to do that anymore, because it's just, people get used to that volume,
Yeah, I remember yesterday when you were playing with the band, with Kevin and Sam, which is a beautiful band. So it was beautiful to see how soft you guys were, and how the crowd was completely captured by everything, and
Yeah.
and this, yeah, it was beautiful. You basically played like a ballad set.
Yeah.
To be honest, and it was so exciting, and it was a ballad with a lot of, you know, movement and energy, but it was basically like a super ballad set.
Right.
It was gorgeous, and it was also, yeah, beautiful. Okay, I want to go back again and ask you again. Okay, so we were talking about so many things, and I know there's so many things to talk about more, but I want to kind of go for it with that idea of you know, practicing and I guess assessing your playing. You were talking basically about how you kind of do this act of you know, asking yourself where you at, you know, what you're doing with your craft, where you want to go, and kind of, again, assessing is, I think, a good word, judging and figuring out how to go about it. So
Right.
so in terms of locking things, you just mentioned that. I remember in our conversations as well, you talked about doing that with different limbs and a lot of different options, right? Not
Yeah.
just one option, but so maybe just one more thing, and we can finish with that, because I know we spoke for a long time. You're like, it's chill.
It's fine, man.
Maybe just one more specific exercise that you would give,
Sure.
both to drummers and non-drummers. Give me an exercise, man.
Well, yeah, you know, so another part of my playing,
I always asking for exercises. Like,
Yeah.
I bug him all the time.
another part of my playing is understanding, like, well, one, any exercise, I want drummers to think about it in a melodic sense. Like, I don't like calling the ride cymbal beat the cymbal pattern. Something about the term pattern bothers me. Maybe it's like back to marching band or something, where it's like you had these patterns and you had these exercises, and you did this and it was, you know. But it's like, this is like you are a living, breathing being, and it's like, in terms of jazz, like the cymbal is your sound, you know. It is. It's like, this is where everything comes from, and so it's like, even if it's repetitive, I want you to think about it as melody. Like, if you had to sing what you were playing,
Yeah.
how would you sing it? And it's like, with some students, I talk to them like, what if like every piece on this drum kit was like an opera singer? It sounds so silly.
No, it's great.
But it's like, you know, how are you gonna play that cymbal then? Because it's like, you know, you've checked out some sort of, you know, opera of some kind. Maybe had a very emotional moment, you know, someone just singing their guts out to you, whether you can understand the language or not. But it's like, you know, they have to have this gusto, or they have to have, you know, it's like,
it's a lot of intention.
yeah, it's just them.
It's,
To everybody, it's just this to everybody, you know. But it's like, it's not necessarily the solo thing. It's just this, but you're supporting the whole band. This is something that's really, it supports the audience. You know, that's heavy to think about it that way.
that is heavy. Yeah.
So like, you know, I'm gonna get to an exercise real quick, but like,
No, it's great.
so I'm always trying to think about the cymbal that way. So now, looking at it that way, I'll start bringing in technical aspects, and it's a lot of it is rhythm stuff. So one thing I do is like, let's say we took just like swung eighth notes, and we played them on every downbeat on the snare drum and every upbeat on the bass drum. So ba ku ga ku ga ku ga ku ga, kind of, you know, it's kind of cheesy. But what we're working on is making sure, you know, the eighth note is happening, that it's swung, and we're working on facility, right? Being able to play a long series of notes, but again, having this be very melodic and this being out on top. And trying to make everything sing. Just trying to, like, you know, making sure that, like, the stuff that's happening here is singing. But now what we're going to do is we're going to work on, like, I mean, a lot of drummers have worked on this in the past, and if you've never studied jazz before, you'd be able to do that eventually, like, fairly fast, you know, putting the hi-hat on 2 and 4. So I'm always looking at, like, okay, what am I always doing all the time? And let's start doing other things. And polyrhythmic, polyrhythms and like metric modulation is a thing that's been going on for a while now. And it's like, well, I don't want to necessarily like modulate to a different rhythm right now. But what if I put dotted quarter notes on my hi-hat while I did ba ku ga 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 with my left foot, but I'm still playing ba da 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 da
That sounds great.
yeah. So it's like, so trying to really sing with the cymbal, have your cymbal beat, really sing and really be firm and understanding that you're trying to play everything there, and like working on some technical eighth note facility stuff here. But then now we're just messing around. We're messing around with the hi-hat, where the hi-hat is always on 2 and 4, because the hi-hat's a beautiful comping device too.
Yeah.
So many great drummers. I mean, one of my favorites that utilize the hi-hat or don't use it. I mean, one we were talking about Leon Parker,
yeah.
But Roy Haynes too, not being afraid to just not play the hi-hat for a long time, and all of a sudden it'll come out in random spots, and not just like on 2 and 4. So it's like, well, let's mess around with this. Let's get this loose. Let's get this, figured out. And with that, I did this at a clinic one time in Austin, and a bunch of older drummers that maybe they're not jazz drummers, some are, but maybe some aren't, and I said, well, okay, so look, and I couldn't even do it at the time. I was like just shit. I'm like, let me show you what I'm working on. That's what I like about clinics. It's like, I want to show you like what I'm working on and why I'm working on it. It's because that's more interesting to me. I mean, you can go on YouTube and see people like throw down and do it, whatever, man. It's like, I just want to I want to see what like people are really interested in. Like that's what I'm interested in a clinic. And so I said, okay, before I get any questions of why, because I have a feeling somebody in here might be like, why did I even come to this? It's like, why should you do that? And my whole reasoning was like, well, we practice the cymbal all the time, and you do it to this point where it becomes like in your heart, and you just understand where it always is, whether it's even or not, how to fix things, how to get in and out of situations. It's like that pulse is encompassed here. And so these other rhythms I also want to be encompassed. So in order for me to make it relevant, I want to practice dotted quarter notes, or I want to practice like groupings of 5 or groupings of 7 on this left foot underneath the heartbeat, underneath that, so I can get all of that rhythm stuff. So you're making a connection between the two.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe at some point you can trail off and go into like a metric modulation, but it's really about like, again, what exactly do you want to play? What rhythm do you want to play? What kind of vibe? How do you want to play it? What's the articulation? What are instruments? It's all these questions we're asking. And so like, I'm looking at it from a little broader perspective of like, okay, I gotta like really encompass this dotted quarter note into my being, because it's something that you hear in so much music.
Yeah.
Whether you're playing jazz and you hear people kind of do that on their snare drum, or like, you're playing like an Afro-Cuban thing, and it's in 6, and you're trying to really get that vibe. It's like, I want to encompass that here, so I always have that subconscious reference of where it is.
Yeah.
So I can draw from it immediately, rather than like, look at this one very specific little drum licky thing I can do.
Right, and I think, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And I feel like what you're saying again is connected to that parenthesis that I talked about with that, how we remember things. And one of the ways again is when we study, it's not a study, I was gonna say. So connecting the new information strongly and heavily with old information that is, like you're saying, the heartbeat.
Yeah.
And so if you have a new element that is, you want to, whatever, do a poly rhythm or a cross rhythm of 7, of 9, of 13, whatever it is, so you sync it with your core.
Yeah.
And then it becomes a part of that.
Right.
But again, taking it to the elements and not trying to practice everything in a crazy kind of way. It's more, this is the element, let's figure it out, let's know the basic building block of what you're dealing with, understanding it deeply, and then being able to be flexible with it.
Always making it a reference to your own human. It's like, how does this reference me and what I do. You know, why are you doing it? I've had many students come up to me and go, you know, talk about things like, yeah, I'm trying to like play samba on my bass drum, but then I'm trying to play like Afro-Cuban clave on my left foot, and it's like, whoa, 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 like, what's the reference here? Like, what is that for? You know, and it's like, okay, and they can't really give me one. It's like, well, where are you from? They're like, oh, I'm from Michigan. You know, it's like, I'm like a white American from Michigan or something. You know, I have none of this culture, don't understand, and I'm not going to play it anywhere. So it's like, unless you're just doing it for a hobby because you just want to do it, like, what's the reference? You know, and that's where people kind of lose sight, especially in drums, because it's like there's so much to do. There's so much gear.
So what you were saying about where they're coming from, are you talking about
like the music they're playing?
Okay, not their heritage, like in
No,
the sense
yeah,
of like,
not
okay,
necessarily their heritage, but like, or you know, but it's like it would be.
what's a part of their being right now?
Yeah,
and, like,
I mean, it'd be different maybe if they had very deep roots in like Cuba and in Brazil or Sao Paulo or something.
Because they would hear that, because
Yeah.
it would be a part of their
but
year.
but if it's like if it just comes from like a technical standpoint, like this is technically very interesting, and I don't have any. I'm not going to use this in any kind of musical setting. Then for me, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, you know, but it's just like, okay,
What are we doing?
so what are you planning to do with this? I'm not saying it's not worth your time necessarily, but like, you know, are you going to be putting this in an appropriate musical context? You know, because it always has to relate to the music first, in my opinion. Though I've taught drummers that it's just like, yeah, I just like playing drums and I try to work on weird things for a hobby. Like, I've had those kinds of students.
Yeah.
So then it's like, well, okay,
Cool. Let's go for it.
that's fine, and I might do it for a minute, and then I go, okay, man, I'm gonna give you another number. Let's just, you go, because like I can only do so much of that, because it's like I want to talk music. Like I do listening in my lessons with my students. It's like, okay, hey, we're gonna check this out today, and sometimes it's like it's sometimes it's stuff that they don't understand. It's really irritable, but again, it's just like trying to throw things at them and like building on their subconscious, so the stuff that they're playing when they're doing this listening, even if it agitates them, you know, they hear these things and they go, oh, and then they have this reference point and they go, oh, I see, oh, you know what, I actually really like this record, you know.
That's cool. Yeah.
So like that's when it becomes really great, is when you can make those kinds of connections.
Yeah.
The
No,
musical.
that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay. So, if people want to hear your music,
Oh yeah.
they can go to your website.
Oh yeah. Daniel Dufour, DUFOUR.com. Yeah, I released a record last year called Distance with some. Oh yeah, I got it right here.
Yeah.
Yep, all original music with my musical brothers, Carter Arrington on guitar, Sean Giddings on piano and keyboards, and Sam Pankey on acoustic and electric bass, and just we were writing tunes and playing gigs, and we're like, let's just go in the studio and do it, and we did it, and then Leah and I were working on getting married and bought a house, and I put it off for a year, and then the engineer was like, hey, I didn't like how I mixed it, so I'm gonna like redo it all.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and so then all of a sudden we just like got everything done.
Amazing.
Yeah, and it sounds really good, and you
Yeah.
know, I mean,
Great.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah. It was a really fun project, and you can check that out on my website. It's also on iTunes and Spotify and those outlets.
And also, Danny is on Instagram, on Facebook. He is also giving Skype lessons. If you're not in Austin, if you are in Austin, please just send him a note. He's really an amazing drummer and educator, as well as musician. So I really strongly advise, even as taking a few or one or more lessons, because he really knows a lot about a lot of things, music and drums. Okay, so we'll say thank you for checking it out and hanging. Thank you, brother.
Yeah. Thank you,
for
man.
this.
Yeah, it's been really great getting to play with Rotem for the past week, I guess almost week now,
Yeah.
and we got a couple more weeks, and yeah, doing some playing, man. It's always a pleasure to hang and play with you, bro.
Thank you. Likewise. All right. Peace out.